A mother's betrayal and medical child abuse is impossible to wrap your head around. To the outside world, she was a saint, a mother whose entire world revolved around her chronically ill child. The medical gaslighting, the fake symptoms, and then came the moment the doctors finally looked closer, Natasha.
And this little girl's experience wasn't the only tragedy.
It's Crime in the City, where we tell the story from the streets to the courthouse. I'm Yvonne Taylor, former judge, prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, civil litigator, and adjunct law professor. I'm here with my podcast bestie, Natasha Sinclair. Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Yvonne. Welcome to Crime in the City. I'm your co-host, Natasha Sinclair. For more than 20 years, I've practiced law in New York and Texas. Yvonne, where are you taking us today?
We are going to St. Petersburg, Florida, Natasha. We are going to talk about what I call a medical kidnapping of a child.
That's what you're calling it?
Yes.
Okay.
I can already tell we might have a difference of opinion on this one.
Yep.
Okay, well, Maya Kowalski is a 10-year-old girl, and she lives with her mother, her father, and her younger brother. And her mother is a nurse who's from Poland. Well, Maya is experiencing chronic pain, and nobody can really figure out why. They don't know what is going on. Well, since her mother is a nurse, her mother had learned about a condition called complex regional pain syndrome. And she had learned about this condition because she had treated a patient who had had it. So she thought, well, maybe this is what's going on with Maya. And complex regional pain syndrome, have you ever heard of that, Natasha?
Never.
Okay. Well, it's a central nervous system disorder where patients experience just a whole array of symptoms, including really, really agonizing pain in their arms, their extremities, and the patient is extremely sensitive to touch and sometimes light, and sometimes they develop sores on their bodies.
Okay.
And it's referred to as CRPS. So as we talk about it, we'll be talking about CRPS, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, in 2015, Maya's 9, and she's diagnosed with CRPS. And this whole thing happens over the course of about a year, from the time she's 9 to 10, right? This whole tragedy, as I call it. Well, she's diagnosed by a doctor in Tampa. And this is after her mother has taken care of a patient, like I said, with the same diagnosis, right? And so initially, Maya was given just the standard kinds of treatments for this condition: warm water therapy, physical therapy, pain medications, and then eventually she was given opiates, right? And none of these things seemed to be working. Maya was still in constant pain. She couldn't walk, and she even had to use a wheelchair. So the doctors added some autoimmune stimulants and even hyperbaric oxygen treatments. Remember Michael Jackson used to sleep in that hyperbaric oxygen treatment?
I do.
So it has really good health benefits because it pumps pure oxygen through the chamber, which is supposed to help with healing cells and circulation, blood circulation, right? Well, none of this really seemed to help Maya's pain. Well, Maya's mother did what many parents do when the standard medical treatments fail. She kept looking for solutions. So her hunt for a treatment for Maya led her to ketamine. Do you know much about ketamine, Natasha?
I knew a little bit about it. I knew it was a drug to facilitate sex assaults. And then in researching this story, I was curious, so I wanted to find out more about it. So I did a little bit of research on the ketamine.
Okay, what'd you find out?
So this is what I found out about ketamine, okay? It's an FDA-approved injectable. It's a short-acting anesthetic for surgeries. It's also used off-label by medical professionals for acute and chronic pain management. For example, it is used to treat complex regional pain syndrome, okay? But the side effects are a little troubling to me. Disassociation, a feeling of being detached or disconnected from one's body and environment, hallucinations, distorted perceptions of sight and sound, often lasting 30 to 60 minutes. And you can enter what's called a K-hole.
What?
Yes, a K-hole. Now, this is a high-dose experience, which I'm sure you're going to get into later about how much ketamine Maya was subjected to. And it's described as a terrifying, vivid, out-of-body or near-death experience. Okay? You can suffer from confusion, memory loss, high blood pressure, dangerously slowed breathing, and unconsciousness. It can also impair coordination and make users feel numb. Long-term use of ketamine can lead to ulcers, pain in the bladder, kidney problems, stomach pain, and depression. There's also a risk of developing dependency on the drugs.
Wow.
It took me back, Yvonne, thinking about a 9, 10-year-old child on this medication.
Yes. And what I remember about it is that's the drug that Matthew Perry, the actor from Friends,
Yes.
that's what he took and died from an overdose of ketamine. So it's a really, really intense drug for a child. Wow.
And think about it, a young girl. It's used as, really a date rape drug.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's troubling.
So in many ways, then that tells you how desperate her mother was to get her some help, to go to those lengths. I mean, she was on a mission to find a treatment for her child. So in many ways, I understand that.
I understand being on a mission to find a treatment, but I'm hard-pressed to believe, and I know I'm right, that this was the only treatment.
Okay, well, maybe you are right, because the mom even took Maya to Mexico, where they put her in a ketamine-induced coma for 5 days.
Too much.
And again, this is a 9, 10-year-old child, right?
Right.
So,
Get in the comments and tell us what you think about the use of ketamine on a 9 or 10-year-old child.
right. And I know none of us are medical experts. We're just talking about as human beings. How do you feel about maybe the desperation of the mother or the need for this extreme treatment for her child, right?
Are you going to tell our listeners why she went to Mexico?
You tell it.
Because we don't do that in the United States.
Right. She
Yeah.
couldn't find anybody in the United
No,
States to do that.
We don't do that.
Right.
Wonder why.
Right. So, okay, Maya and her mom are back in the States, right? And for about 9 months, she is receiving these ketamine infusions from a pain management doctor, Dr. Hannah. So now it's October 7th, 2016, and this is where things really start to fall apart. Maya is having excruciating stomach pain.
I bet she is.
Yeah.
From that ketamine. That's
Yes.
one of the known side effects.
Exactly. So Dr. Hannah told her parents that Maya had received the maximum dose of ketamine that she could be given, and it just wasn't working anymore. So he says, take her to the emergency room. So they take her to Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, ER, right? Okay. Her parents don't want to see their little girl suffering, so, they get to the hospital and they tell the doctor, listen, this is the only thing that's been working for our daughter. This is what the mom says. The mom is a nurse, so the dad is sort of falling back and letting the mom take the lead on all of this, right? So they're in the ER. Maya's mom is explaining her condition to the doctors and the nurses. And then she explains the treatment plan. She tells them that Maya's condition gets better when she's on ketamine, but her doctor said she needs a higher dose, and that can only be administered safely in the hospital. Well, it's immediately clear to Maya's mother that the staff has never seen a case like this. At least that's what her mom thinks, right?
Right. And it is rare. I mean, let's call a thing a thing. It's an extremely rare condition.
Exactly. And the problem with going to the ER is you're not getting doctors who are specialists. You're getting doctors who are treating an emergency. So they might not have seen it, and they might have been suspicious. The mom is from Poland, so she's got an accent. This daughter, she shows up with her daughter who has this rare condition and is being treated with this extremely rare medication. So it all looks suspicious. I can see how it looks suspicious.
And she's demanding
Yeah.
the high dose of ketamine.
Right. But the other side of that, Natasha, is her mom knows what works for her child. So there's always that balance between the patient and the medical profession. Hey, I know this works for me, but then the doctors are saying, well, this might not be the best course of action. So maybe some of that was going on initially in the ER.
But Yvonne, it wasn't working. That's why she was in the ER.
Exactly.
I mean, at some point, you got to re-examine your premise.
Well, it wasn't working, but the doctor said she might need a higher dose, and it's not safe to do it outside of the hospital setting. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's not working. It just means it's no longer working at that dose. And, maybe they need to take a look at some other options.
This is a 9 or 10-year-old child.
Exactly, which is why you don't want to see a 9 or 10-year-old child suffering in chronic pain, and you're trying to figure out all these ways to deal with it. So I have some sympathy for what the mother is trying to do for her daughter. Maya is in pain, and she's in a wheelchair, and she has this rare condition. The hospital thinks all of this is suspicious. They say the mom is asking for these extremely high levels of ketamine because, first of all, giving ketamine to a child is unusual, and then these high doses makes them even more suspicious. And get this, Natasha, apparently Maya had received something like 55 doses of ketamine, which is far more than the dosage that's approved by the FDA.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And this is the only thing you've tried.
Right. I get that. Yeah. Well, not the only thing. They had tried those other standard treatments and nothing was working.
According to mom.
According to mom, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, I just want to be clear.
Right. Well, the other thing that medical experts have said about ketamine is giving it to a child and putting a child in a ketamine coma like they did in Mexico. There's a 50-50 chance that the child won't survive.
Right.
So it's just really high risk. And the other thing I think that was making the doctors and nurses suspicious was that Maya's mother couldn't seem to give them an accurate account of Maya's condition and treatment. But to me, part of that could have been a language barrier.
No, she spoke perfect English. She had an accent. She spoke perfect English. She was nursing, Yvonne.
Yeah, she had an accent.
It wasn't a language barrier. It was simply that she wanted what she wanted. When they asked questions to determine what is going on here, she could not give them adequate answers.
But she wanted what she wanted because she felt like that's what worked for her child.
Right.
So, all right. So somehow, based on all of this, the staff is suspicious, and now they think, well, Maya is being abused. So what do?
They call CPS.
Yeah. They call a social worker in the hospital who then contacts the Department of Children and Families Abuse Hotline. So that opens an investigation, right? And this is where things start to go sideways. The investigation leads to the Department of Children and Families ask the court for an emergency hearing because apparently they think Maya is in danger, right? So the department alleged that Maya had been abused, abandoned, or neglected, or was in some kind of immediate, imminent danger of abuse or abandonment or neglect, right? So they request, the Department of Children and Families, they request that they take control of Maya's medical care. And then they ask to be able to make decisions about her care and treatment plan. Then they requested that Maya have no contact with her mother and supervised visits with her father and her brother. So what do you think of that?
Well, I think the hospital had reason to be suspicious because it's all sounding bizarre, and the law mandates that they report suspicions of child abuse to the authorities so we can do something about it and protect this child.
Yeah. The issue I have is the no contact with her mother. I think that that's an extreme step to start with. I would say you start with supervised contact because you've got a 10-year-old child who, if she's being abused, she's traumatized. If she's not being abused and this medical condition is real, she's traumatized. So to immediately take her away from her family, her caregivers, to me, is not in the best interest of the child, which is always what family courts are supposed to be looking at. What is in the best interest of the child? But I often think that sometimes they jump the gun in an effort to protect the child. They aren't thinking about the psychological impact their decisions have on children.
Oh, I'm thinking they are most definitely thinking about it. And if you believe the mother is abusing the child, and that's what they believe the mother was suffering from Munchausen syndrome by proxy, okay, and that she was abusing the child, just at least temporarily until we can figure this out, you're going to separate that child from the parent. And I don't have a problem with that. It wasn't a permanent, you're losing custody of your daughter forever. It was, hey, no contact with you until we could get this figured out. She was still allowed to see her father. She was still allowed to see her brother.
Right, but children have different relationships with each parent. So
Absolutely.
I just think that
I understand mom was she was the caregiver for Maya.
Exactly.
So I get how that could be traumatic, but at the same time, so is giving you additional ketamine at this point.
Right, but we don't know right now. The hospital and the courts don't really know what's happening. So they're in the investigative stage, right? So 7 days after Maya was admitted to the hospital, the court orders Maya to be placed in the custody of the Department of Children and Family Services. So when Maya's mother hears about this, she just drops to her knees. And when she found out she just wouldn't be able to see her daughter, she really couldn't handle it. And I really understand that.
From a mother's standpoint, absolutely,
Yeah.
I do. I absolutely get it.
Yeah, so Maya said that, her mother kissed her on her forehead and said, "I love you." And Natasha, that was the last time Maya saw her mother. So this is just crazy. So the court, in my mind, ripped a 10-year-old sick, scared child away from her family just very quickly, very quickly. I mean, can you imagine how scared Maya was? You mentioned Munchausen by proxy syndrome. That's what the hospital staff believed the mother was experiencing. It's a mental health disorder. Are you familiar with that condition, Natasha?
Yes. You want to hear something interesting?
Uh-huh.
The very first child abuse case that I sat second chair on was Munchausen
Really?
by proxy. Yep.
Wow.
I just can't believe this.
Wow.
In the case I sat in on at second chair, it wasn't a gray area, Yvonne.
Really?
The mom was doing this.
Wow.
It was there was no doubt. It
Yeah.
was, for the state, it was a whale.
Wow. Well, I think we might be having the same experience here with Maya's case. So tell our folks about that mental health issue.
Yes, as you said, Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a mental health condition and a form of abuse in which a caregiver fabricates or induces an illness or injury in a vulnerable person under their care, such as a child or an elderly adult. And they do this to gain attention and sympathy. It's also known as medical child abuse.
Yeah, well, there it is. So the courts wanted Maya and her mom to be evaluated, right? They had them both undergo psychological testing, and it turns out that Maya's mother, at least according to that test, did not have Munchausen by proxy.
In researching this story, the psychological evaluation consisted of the evaluator asking her, do you have this condition? She's a nurse.
And what do you think anyone's going to say when you ask them if they have a mental health condition, who's a nurse who is suspicious of the system and think they're trying to take her daughter from her?
The answer is always going to be no. She knows
Right.
about Munchausen syndrome by proxy. She's familiar with it. She's
Right.
suffering from it, Yvonne.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I'm still a little bit, just a little bit. I try my best to give her grace and err on. I'm not 100% sure, but from everything I've seen, it points me in that direction.
Yeah. In all fairness, it does. At some point, Maya's parents asked the hospital to release her and let her go home.
No, we can't do that.
So the hospital says absolutely not, and they threaten the parents and tell them, if you try to take her out of here, we will have you arrested.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And in all fairness, the hospital staff did tell the parents that Maya needed to be safely weaned off of ketamine and these other medications that she was taking.
Right.
And also, Natasha, before Maya had been admitted to this hospital, she had been treated at 2 other hospitals. And
Interesting. No, I did not know that.
yeah.
2 other hospitals for what?
Well, for this same condition.
Oh.
And
Okay.
the staff at those other hospitals also thought that her mother might have Munchausen.
Okay. That makes sense because they usually doctor shop. I mean, that's the thrill of their mental illness, right? That, oh my God, I got to rush the baby. There's something's going on. I got to get to a hospital. I got to get to a doctor so they can get that sympathy from having the sick child.
Wow.
It's really quite sad.
Wow.
It really is quite sad.
Well, Maya's father said that everything he brought to the hospital while Maya was staying there had to be approved. The clothing, the food, everything. And the food had to be prepackaged because they were concerned that her mother might put something in the food to continue this
Right.
pretend sickness. At least that's what they thought was happening, right?
I don't even know if I think it was a pretend sickness. I think she could have had CRPS. But I think there was a huge disagreement as to what the treatment should be with the hospital staff. I truly do believe that. When I look
makes
at all
sense.
the court documents, I don't think they did not doubt her about the disease or the condition. And I'm talking about the medical doctors. I know there were problems, huge problems with the staff.
Yeah.
Okay. Who cares about them? But
Yeah.
the medical personnel, the doctors, I think they honestly believe she was suffering from this condition. They just would not agree with Maya's mom as to the treatment platform.
Right. Some of the social workers, at least one social worker, kept telling her, there's nothing wrong with you. Your
Right.
mom is telling you that you're sick, and you're really not. So
It's
they
nonsense.
were telling her that it was
Right.
all in her head. So at this point, Maya's been in the hospital for about 10 days, right? So the hospital decides to move Maya to a room with a video camera. So basically, she was under 24-hour surveillance because they just wanted to see what was really going on with her.
Right.
Was she sick? Did she think she was sick? Was she acting out based on what her mother told her was wrong with her?
Right.
Well, nobody told the parents that there were cameras in the room. At least that's what the parents say. So remember, Maya's mother had been ordered to stay away from her. No contact whatsoever, right?
Right.
No visits, no phone calls, no text messages, no FaceTime, nothing. So now it's been about 2 weeks since Maya and her mother have seen each other. So can you imagine how Maya is feeling?
Right. Because she doesn't understand. She's just a child.
Right.
And a sick child at that.
Right. So she says she was incredibly upset and lonely and that she really, really missed her mother.
Of course.
So eventually the court relented and let Maya and her mother talk to each other on the phone and have some FaceTime visits, right?
Right.
So now remember, Maya's mother is Polish. So Maya also spoke Polish. But the court ordered that these conversations be monitored, so they weren't allowed to speak to each other in Polish. They could only speak English, and they couldn't talk about Maya's health or the court case.
Okay.
Which seems reasonable since they were
Correct.
suspicious
Yeah.
of what was going on.
Right.
Well, here's another thing that happened, Natasha. Maya had to appear in court on 2 different occasions during this whole court-ordered custody process, right? And the hospital took pictures of Maya in her underwear to document what she looked like while she was in their care.
Right.
I am sure that that in and of itself had to be traumatic for a 10-year-old child, little girl as well. So
Yes.
Maya she was being put through a lot.
Absolutely, she was.
So after nearly 100 days of Maya being in the hospital, on January 6, 2017, the court ordered that Maya would remain under the court's control, and they set a hearing for February of 2017. Well, Maya's mother couldn't take it anymore. She was just terrified that the court was going to take Maya away from her. She was terrified that Maya wouldn't be able to withstand the care plan that they wanted to put in place for her, take her off the ketamine, all of those things. So she was just terrified, and she just felt like she was out of options. So on January 7th, the day after the court set the hearing, Maya's mother died by suicide.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate result.
And Maya's mother left 2 suicide notes. Now, after all the damage has been done and this family has been destroyed in the name of taking care of Maya, I get it. And after this nearly 100-day, maybe medical kidnapping, maybe not.
Maybe you changed your position.
I'm not sure. No, well.
Oh, okay. Hope springs eternal. With
Right. Well, the court allows Maya to go home. Then the court dismisses the, I'll call custody case, right? So Maya's no longer under the court control.
Right. It was the mother that they were afraid of.
Yeah. Now, get this, Natasha. The entire time Maya was in the hospital, she was still in pain and couldn't walk and continued to use a wheelchair. I don't know.
Well, Yvonne, I watched the Netflix documentary because I wanted to research everything I could because I found this case quite interesting. There's video of her in the hospital, and she doesn't appear to be in pain. She's sitting up. She's got her legs folded Indian style, and she's playing Uno with her brother when he comes over. She's able to move. And I get it that not every single day she's in pain, but there's a ton of video without her being in pain.
Well, I think that is the mystery of chronic pain and the thing that confuses people, including the medical staff. Pain doesn't present in the same way at the same time. And sometimes people develop a tolerance for pain and they just become stoic. They're in pain, but they try to keep functioning. So perhaps
right. No, I get that 100%. And I don't doubt that. I'm just saying that I remember seeing when her mother presented Maya to the first doctor, Dr. Hannah, in the wheelchair, she had her feet crossed almost over each other as if they could not move any other way. Okay? And I didn't notice that at all in the hospital.
Yeah.
You know, and supposedly she could barely lift her arms, but I saw her moving her arms. And I do agree. I don't know. I don't pretend to know the child's level of pain. I'm just saying from what I could observe, I did not see her presenting the same way she did, at least initially when she was with mom.
Right. And, like I said, she could have been getting better. Pain spikes,
Better without the ketamine?
Well,
Because that's what the disagreement was. Let's
Yes.
talk about it,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
That's where the disagreement was. I don't think anybody, and again, I'm talking about the doctors, doubted the diagnosis, okay? It was the treatment plan that led everything to fall apart.
right.
Beata was the mother. She was very controlling.
Yeah,
She
she was.
wanted it her way. And I think even her husband, Maya's dad, would tell you the same.
Yeah.
She was a very controlling woman and she wanted it her way. But I take issue with her insistence on the ketamine, considering it could have killed Maya.
Right. And let me say this about her being very controlling. I go back to the idea that she had been dealing with Maya and this condition and the pain for however many years she had been dealing with it. So she did bring a level of experience to the table. So there's, again, always that balance between what the patient and the caregivers are experiencing versus what the books tell the doctors is the best form of treatment. So that's, in my mind, always a tricky thing to balance when you have an unusual, rare, chronic condition that many doctors haven't seen.
Right. They may not. I understand everything you're saying. Again, my only issue is ketamine is the only treatment and it must be given in these high doses. That's my issue with this whole thing.
understand.
That's where it all falls apart.
And I think that was the hospital's issue with it as well.
Yeah, it
So.
just falls apart for me, and that's when I start to look at Beata and say, "Hey, what's really going on here?"
Yeah, Beata, her mother, right?
Yeah, you start to look at that, and then in doing some digging, Yvonne, I found some email posts that Beata, the mom, had drafted, and they're very troubling. And that's what honestly led me to the conclusion, yeah, she may be suffering from Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Let me
Really?
read a few to you.
Do that.
Okay. So, and this is according to the lawyers on the other side, the lawyers representing the hospital. And they found these emails in a draft of a 2015 blog post Beata composed in her daughter's voice. She wrote, her induced ketamine coma could result in total body failure and death. In another post, still writing from Maya's perspective, she wrote, if I was a horse, I would be comatose or dead already.
What?
Yes. My mommy kept vigil on me all day long and kept checking on me, even at night, to make sure I was doing okay. The mother wrote of herself in an email draft. In these lengthy emails she wrote in her daughter's voice, she described the rarity of her condition, the debilitating side effects of the ketamine treatments, including a distended stomach, waking up every 30 minutes at night, elevated temperatures, and discomfort from a feeding tube. Thank God my mommy was there. And that's when I said, yeah, I think she was suffering from
wow.
Munchausen syndrome by
wow.
proxy. It just put a whole different spin on it,
Oh,
right?
it absolutely does, Natasha.
I mean, you have a sick child at home. Who has time for that?
Oh.
What are you doing now?
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, that changes. That
Right.
changes things.
Right? Even for you.
Even for me. But what it doesn't change, and I would like to hear from our listeners, what do you think? I still say that when you're dealing with an unusual health condition, sometimes hospitals, doctors, and medical staff think that they know better than you know about what your body is experiencing. So I just want to hear from folks out there to tell me what you think. Have you ever had that kind of experience where you know that this particular medication works, but the doctors keep telling you the textbooks tells us otherwise?
No, I don't think it's that. I think sometimes, I think good doctors listen to you and they know that you know your body better than anyone, and they respect that. right? I don't think anybody's running out there saying, but this, you're wrong because the textbook says this. Yvonne, no.
No,
Yeah.
I think you'd be surprised. So that's why I'm asking our listeners, have you ever had
Get
an
in the
experience
comments. Help her.
where
Help her.
doctors have told you, no, this is not the path you should go down, even though you say this is working for you? So, okay, let's get back to Maya. Now, in 2018, the year after Maya's mother dies by suicide, her father sues the hospital. He accuses the hospital of false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, wrongful death of Maya's mother, medical negligence, battery, and fraudulent billing, which we don't care so much about that. What we care about are the other issues in my mind, Natasha. So in November of 2023, the hospital was found liable for the death of Beata, Maya's mother. They were also found liable for several other claims: false imprisonment, battery, inflicting emotional distress on Maya. And then the hospital was also found for this fraudulent billing of the way they billed her father, right? Well, it didn't end there.
Well, what was the award?
Tell us.
Right. $213 million.
Yeah, big number.
Huge.
Big number. So the trial court believed that the hospital went too far. The jurors and the trial court, because that's a huge number. But it didn't end there.
Thank God.
What do you think happened next, Natasha?
This time, I'm hopeful for a reversal on appeal.
Well, that's what happened. So
Yeah.
in August of 2024, the case was reversed on appeal, and the family got nothing.
Right. Right. I understand. And I understand that. I say I understand that, Yvonne, because false imprisonment.
Now, talk to us, Natasha, about the difference between civil false imprisonment and criminal kidnapping.
Okay. In doing research for this story, this is what I found out. Florida has a false imprisonment statute, okay? And it's a little strange because it's Chapter 787 and they title it kidnapping, but the crime itself, okay, is false imprisonment. And they have imprisonment of a child under 13, okay? The term false imprisonment means forcibly, by threat or secretly confining, abducting, imprisoning, or restraining another person, and here are the key words, without lawful authority and against her or his will. Okay? The hospital had authority, so there was never, I don't know, a prosecutor alive that was going to touch this case in terms of charging the hospital. They had authority, whether you agree or not. There was a court order in place that said this child is to remain in the hospital. Okay?
Absolutely
So they
correct.
had that. Let's take a look at Chapter 39, which, again, Florida, Chapter 39, which gives a civil cause of action, okay? And it says, there is a cause of action for false imprisonment, which tells you it's a civil case, cause of action. The unlawful detention and deprivation of liberty of a person against that person's will. And again, it has the same component as the criminal statute, without legal authority or color of authority. They had that. There was no false imprisonment here. It was outrageous that that cause of action ever even bloomed into anything. It should have been, really, they should have been directed out. I don't know how they're hearing a jury's making a decision on false imprisonment.
I think that this was one of those cases where the jury said, I don't care what the law is, this just seems outrageous to me, because I agree with you. There was no false imprisonment. And honestly, when you say directed out, tell our listeners what that means.
I truly believe there should have been some type of summary judgment hearing, okay, where the plaintiff, the family, would put on their case about this false imprisonment. The defense would stand up with their court order and say, Judge, they cannot prove that we did not have legal authority because he is the authority. I don't necessarily fault the jurors because they're not responsible for knowing the law. But the judge is. The judge is the gatekeeper. This should have never been put in front of a jury. He got it all the way wrong.
Yeah.
I think I know what happened, Yvonne. I truly believe, even though we are taught to take the emotion out of it and simply be guided by the law, the facts of this case are compelling. The way that Maya was spoke to in the hospital and the background chatter about her mom and her being told all these horrific things about her mom, that's horrible and should not happen to anyone. And so you think of this poor sick girl being ripped away from her mom who's trying to do her level best to help her child, because maybe everybody didn't believe that she had Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Maybe some people thought she was just a mom hell-bent on trying to do the best she could to make sure her daughter didn't suffer. And
Yeah.
I think everybody got carried away with the emotions because I do not understand legally how this happened. How was a jury allowed to make this decision when it wasn't there?
That issue should have never made it to the jury. That should have been an issue that the judge decided on in a hearing before the case even got to the jury.
Agreed. And obviously, I have no doubt the defense attorneys raised it.
Right.
But their motion or hearing, it was denied.
Right.
The judge said, no, I'm going to allow it.
I'm going to allow the jury to hear everything.
To hear all of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing about the legal system and the judge's responsibility. There are some issues that the judge rules on and the jury never gets an opportunity to even hear about or make a decision on. And this is one of them.
Right. In matters of the law, the judge is the gatekeeper. He controls, he rules that area.
Or she.
That's right. Excuse me, Judge. Rules that area exclusively.
Exactly.
Matter of when it comes to the facts, that's the jury's province.
Absolutely.
Okay. And also, I was troubled by the fact that the doctors and different members of the hospital staff, whether you like them or not, they are mandated reporters of child abuse.
Absolutely.
Okay?
And we want them to do that. We
Yes,
don't
we do.
want a child to be abused and to slip through the cracks because of someone's opinion. If something, as they say, if you see something, say something.
Yes.
They saw something and they said something.
Absolutely. And I can't say that they were unreasonable when
I agree. They were reasonable. What they saw was all out of order.
Right. I mean,
It made no sense. It made no sense.
I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I am going 100% of the time, I am going to err on the side of the child and protecting that child.
100.
There's no other way we can do it.
Right. 100%.
And I'm not saying that the system gets it right every time,
Right.
because we don't.
Right.
But there is a process in play, and I know it's costly and time consuming. I do not make light of that.
And traumatizes the family. We have to say that as well.
Absolutely.
Because even in cases where the child is being abused, the system honestly re-traumatizes the children, the family, everybody. It is not a perfect system. We don't have enough people to handle these kinds of cases as delicately and compassionately as we should.
We sure don't. Yvonne.
So now, after Maya's been out of the hospital, here we are in August of 2018. Maya is a 7th grader. So while she's in the 7th and the 8th grade, she is participating in physical activities with no restrictions.
Right.
And now she walks without assistance. She still has, according to her, she, here we are in 2025. She still has CRPS. She still has these flare-ups. But I want to ask our listeners, what do they think about this medical kidnapping
It wasn't. Yvonne, how
versus
could it,
false
how
imprisonment
could
and
it
how
be
the
a-
system handled. I want to hear from them. We have our own opinions. I get it.
Why do you put stuff out there like that? I just want to tell our listeners this. I want them to consider this. At the time of trial, the only medications Maya routinely took were Claritin, Flonase, and a sleep aid. She had been able to walk, run, and ice skate. Maya testified she had experienced no CRPS flare-ups in the 3 years following her January discharge from the hospital.
Well, listeners, tell us what you think.
You've got all the information now.
Tell
I
us
can't
what you
wait to hear.
Yeah.
All right, Yvonne.
I think we'll leave it right there.
Next time. Find us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a comment on Instagram or Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Natasha Sinclair.
And I'm Yvonne Taylor.